Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're embarking on a pretty fascinating journey to demystify one of the most incredible feats of human cognition, second language acquisition, or SLA for short. Look, if you've ever struggled to roll your R's, tried to memorize endless verb conjugations, or just wondered why kids seem to soak up languages like little sponges while adults sweat over textbooks, well, you're in the exact right place. We're going to treat this like a chronological, scientific quest to really understand the bilingual brain. We'll track how our entire understanding of language learning has completely transformed over the decades. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with Section 1, the quest for SLA, move into Section 2, habits versus universal grammar, then hit Section 3, input, monitor, and output. After that, we'll cover Section 4, the brain as processor, Section 5, the social language learner, and finally, wrap things up with Section 6, first language as an ally. And just to ground us, everything we're diving into today comes straight from the official second language acquisition curriculum from the Virtual University of Pakistan. We're taking that dense, highly researched academic source material and, well, breaking it down into clear, actionable insights for you. All right, Section 1, the quest for SLA. Language learning isn't just another subject you study in school. It's arguably the ultimate mystery of human cognition. The whole field really boils down to one foundational question. How does the human brain actually acquire a second language? And answering this isn't just for scientists and lab coats. If you're trying to learn Spanish, Arabic, Mandarin, you name it, understanding the how is absolutely crucial. It's the key to unlocking your own potential and breaking out of that frustrating cycle of memorizing and forgetting. So let's get our terms straight first. Second language acquisition, according to our source material, is basically how learners internalize and use a linguistic system other than their native tongue. The really crucial thing to notice here is that SLA focuses specifically on the learners and the learning process. It's not just about teachers or teaching methods, it's really about what is happening inside your head. Moving on to Section 2, habits versus universal grammar. To really understand where we are today, we kind of have to travel back to the 1950s, the era of a classic nature versus nurture debate. On one side, we had behaviorism, championed by B.F. Skinner. He argued that language is essentially just a habit. It's formed through simple imitation, repetition, and reinforcement. Practice makes perfect, right? But on the other side, Noam Chomsky led this massive, revolutionary rebellion. He argued that you simply cannot compare a child learning a language to a rat navigating a maze. Chomsky proposed universal grammar, this wild idea that humans are actually born with an innate biological language blueprint. We don't just mimic. Our brains literally expect language to be organized in a specific way. Section 3, input, monitor, and output. Let's fast forward a bit to the 1970s and 80s. The field started focusing heavily on how we actually interact with language data. Enter Stephen Krashen and his famous 5 hypotheses. These basically became the ultimate checklist for language classrooms everywhere. The most famous one is definitely the input hypothesis. Krashen claimed we acquire language in only one way, by understanding messages or receiving comprehensible input. Basically, if you just read and listen to things you mostly understand, your brain automatically does the grammatical heavy lifting for you. He also brought up the affective filter, which is super interesting. He pointed out that if you're anxious or unmotivated, you literally put up a mental wall that blocks that input from ever getting in. But is just listening really enough? While Krashen said comprehension naturally builds competence, Meryl Swain stepped in with the output hypothesis. She studied immersion students who listened to French all day but still made consistent grammatical errors. Her big revelation was that producing language, actually forcing yourself to speak or write, is what forces your brain to completely process the grammar. Listening lets you sort of guess the meaning from context, sure, but speaking, that forces you to build the structure yourself from scratch. Section 4, the brain as processor. As we shift into the cognitive era, researchers started looking at the brain as this highly efficient computer processing complex skills. A perfect illustration of this is Anderson's ACT STAR model, which breaks skill acquisition into 3 clear steps. In stage 1, the cognitive stage, you consciously learn a rule, like say adding an S to third-person verbs. It's slow and it's deliberate. In stage 2, the associative stage, you practice and actually work out how to apply that rule in real time. Finally, we hit stage 3, the autonomous stage. Through enough practice, the skill becomes rapid, automatic, and totally effortless. That once painful, conscious grammar rule transforms into natural fluency, and honestly, you might even forget the explicit rule you originally learned. Building on that whole computer metaphor, we get connectionism. As modern computers got more advanced, researchers realized the brain might work similarly through neural networks. The source material points out that in this view, language isn't about memorizing abstract rules at all. It's actually about massive pattern recognition. Your brain is constantly calculating probabilities based on how often you hear certain words together, strengthening or weakening those neural connections with literally every sentence you process. Next up, Section 5, the social language learner. But of course, humans aren't just isolated computers processing data in a vacuum. Language fundamentally requires interaction with other people. This brings us to a vital concept from the Soviet psychologist Lev Vygotsky, the zone of proximal development, or ZPD. I like to think of this as the absolute sweet spot for learning. It's that space right at the edge of your current ability. You can't quite achieve the task completely alone yet, but you can do it with just a little guidance from someone more skilled. So, how does a teacher or a native speaker actually help you cross that ZPD? Through a process called scaffolding. Just like in construction, scaffolding is the supportive dialogue that holds you up as you build your language skills. It happens when a conversation partner simplifies a task for you, keeps you focused, or provides a perfectly idealized version of a sentence when you're stumbling and struggling to find the right words. The really crucial takeaway here is that language learning is intermental before it ever becomes intramental, meaning you absolutely must interact socially and collaboratively with others to build the internal mental tools you need for independent fluency. You essentially borrow the knowledge from the social space until you fully own it internally. Finally, Section 6, First Language as an Ally. This brings us to the climax of our chronological journey today, a massive paradigm shift regarding a tool you already possess. For a very long time, the first language was viewed as the ultimate enemy. This source material highlights a stark historical and institutional reality with this quote: Pakistani elite schools frequently punish, fine, or humiliate students for speaking Urdu or a home language in English classrooms. This is the dark side of those outdated behaviorist theories we discussed earlier. It was driven by this totally false assumption that using your mother tongue blocks second language learning and therefore must be aggressively eradicated from the classroom. Thankfully, we've finally moved away from that punitive, outdated view of your native language as a negative interference. Today, modern linguistics understands that your first language actually provides transitional competence. It is not an obstacle in the slightest. It's the very foundation you use to make sense of the new language. You use your existing hard-earned knowledge to build the scaffolding for the new structures. In fact, language awareness theory tells us that your L1 serves as a highly crucial inner speech tool. When a task gets really difficult, you naturally resort to your mother tongue in your head to organize, process, and regulate all that new information. It gives you the mental space to contextualize new knowledge before you can fully operate in the second language. It's a completely natural, necessary, and helpful step. We've covered an incredible amount of ground today, all the way from Chomsky's mental blueprints to the sheer power of social scaffolding. But I want to leave you with this final provocative question. Next time you study a new language, how will you use your mother tongue to build the bridge instead of trying to burn it down? Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer, and keep unlocking that bilingual brain.